Okay, I rushed it and went live a tad early. Can I go live and get this post up? All right. Sorry, everybody. Give me a second. I'm so bad at multitasking. Have you given up on buying a home, or is it still possible for the next generation? Sorry, everybody. I posted something and then, no, I was trying to post something. I was writing my caption and then I went live a little fast. Have you given up on buying a home, or is it still possible for the next generation? I'm about to post something. What do you guys think? Can the next generation still buy a home, or is it out of reach for them? What do we think? Can you still buy a house, or is that over with? Buying a home. What are my hashtags going to be? Real estate investing. Should we make... All right, there we go. Let's see what you guys think. How do you pronounce Minik Mahdi like that? Are we playing Sheck's event next year? We are. Very reachable. Nick, I think it's reachable too. I just think it's hard. Anthony, I'm a loan officer and I can give an opinion. Give me the opinion, big dog. We're waiting for it. We're waiting for it. Is it possible? Out of reach for most. Brian Sumner, how are you, brother? In California, it feels out of reach for most. I would agree with you there. In other states, I think it's totally possible. In California, it feels brutal. I totally agree. I invested in a lot of land in Puerto Rico. Was it a bad investment? The plan was build my own home. I don't invest out of the country, actually. I have no clue. All right, here we go. I'm getting this thing up. Life with Mikey. New episode, Light Lightning, now live. Yep. Comment. Podcast. Whoa. Didn't hear that. Okay. All right. Here we go. Tag people. Sorry, I am so bad at this. I'm trying to freaking post something. I am so not good at doing multiple things. All right. Hey, Mikey, I recently watched Pretty Sweet when it first came out. What was your reaction? How do you think has the best video part of all time? I loved Pretty Sweet. I thought that was a great video. Best video part of all time? I don't know. My favorite was Eric Costin and Guy Mariano in Mouse. That was my favorite. Hey, Mikey, we saw the Fed reduce rates by 50 bips. Think they're going to reduce it again before the end of the year? Good question. What's going to happen to interest rates? I would say what's going to happen to interest rates, maybe they drop it another quarter of a point before the end of the year, but I don't think they need to. I could actually see them holding till the end of the year. But if they drop it a quarter of a point by then, awesome. If not, I think it comes the next quarter. All right. Mikey T, what's going on, Ben? Depending on where you are located, major states like California and New York, it's hard because of inventory. That's absolutely right. I'm 27 and it feels out of reach. I have good credit, but between being young and having cars, HOAs don't want me. Yeah, HOAs, I mean, HOAs aren't for, everyone. Like, you can definitely get into a neighborhood without an HOA. What's the thing to invest in right now? What's your next thing? Corey, for me, it's apartments. Housing. That's what I think for what I invest in real estate. This moment that we live in will be talked about for the rest of our lives, for sure, which is going to be the housing crisis. Like, this moment will be talked about forever. Our kids will be taught about this moment. What created the housing crisis? And so I think the biggest opportunity is housing in it. Like, if there's a housing crisis and housing is needed, this is what I think we're all going to see. And I'm banking on this. Like, we are investing a lot of money into apartments. You can invest in single family as well. It's just, for my business, we do apartments. When something's undersupplied, this is what happens. One, there's high demand because supply is below demand, which means you lease up quick. That's a good place to be in if you're investing in housing. You're adding new supply. I think anytime you solve a problem, that's the best way to make money. Here's the big one. The politicians know that it's a problem. The politicians know that we're in a housing crisis. And they're basically watching people talk about the number one pain point, or maybe not number one, the top three pain points being housing costs, price of housing. And so I think you're going to see more and more incentives and deregulation around building homes, building housing in general. So I think that's the opportunity of our lifetime. Well, that's the opportunity of this moment that is going to be talked about for the rest of our life. Should I become a police officer? See peace. If that's what you think you would be, good at and enjoy, yeah, absolutely. Recently been learning about the Fed and can't tell if they are necessary or a scheme. Thoughts on fractional reserve banking? That is such a big question. Are they necessary? Well, the answer is no. They're not necessary in general, but the idea is that the Federal Reserve keeps some type of consistency in our economy, where prior to the Federal Reserve, you saw huge swings, right? Huge, upside, massive corrections. You also saw inflation, and then you saw deflation. The big thing that the Fed did is, one, they attempt to make sure that unemployment is low and simultaneously try to basically make sure that we're not going into deep recessions. They've done a decent job at that, but you never have like deflationary moments anymore. It's all inflation always. So it's hard to say if it's necessary. I think if the goal is stability, I think the Fed does you're going to get more stability when you have somebody controlling the monetary kind of the system. That's for sure. Is it necessary? I mean, you'd have more unemployment. You'd have bigger recessions. You'd have depressions. So I don't know. That's a big question. Besides house flipping, how do younger people get started in real estate investing? A lot of young people get started with wholesaling, actually, like trying to lock up properties under contract and then flipping the paper to investors. That's not a terrible way to get started. Takes real little in, takes a lot of time and energy, but that's probably a pretty good way for the youth to get in. Yeah, I mean, private ownership has led to where we are now. Kevin, when you say private ownership, do you mean private ownership of real estate? Are you saying the mess that we're in is because people can own real estate? Adam, what's going on, my man? Is skateboard industry still profitable? The skateboard industry is going through a tough time. They're definitely in a massive pullback right now. I guess to keep on topic, if the economy, will there be a time where they deregulate so that massive corps have less power in markets? Good question. Well, will there be a time where they deregulate? You can make the argument that if Trump wins, you will see deregulation. But deregulation and corporations having less power are two different things. To have corporations have less power, that's a tough one, right? That can go into like many different conversations. Probably a conversation around, I mean, I guess you could make a conversation with that more regulation kills medium to small business, so only the large corporations can hold, and in that, then they own the industry. So I guess that's a fair way to look at it. Probably lobbying and maybe like how the corporations influence elections, that's probably the next thing, I bet. Yes, sir. Okay, Kevin. I have a totally different, you're going to know this. If you follow me, you're going to know my view is way different than yours. I don't think we're in a housing crisis because we are allowed to own real estate. The free market has proven that they will always do it cheaper than the government and quicker than the government. The government does not run things well. Like any institution that the government runs, it's not like they kill it at it. I mean, look at the government in real estate right now. Like when the government builds their like homeless housing, they're spending an astronomical amount of money. What did that cost them? $900,000 a unit to build that high rise in LA, right? For us, it costs us like $400,000 a unit. So, the idea that the government does it better, we've just never seen an example of that. Now, as far as people owning real estate, I think it's always better that we own it and not the government. But let's just say, this moment was caused by private ownership in real estate. I guess my challenge would be, okay, well, what the private market does very well is recognize opportunity, right? The private market and the competition aspect of capitalism makes it very competitive. And so when they see a disparity, let's say in supply, right? Let's just throw it out there. 10 million people, 7 million homes. They need 3 million built. What the private market does is go, oh my gosh, homes need to be built. I'm going to jump in and I'm going to build. And that's how they make money because they saw the opportunity. Now, if you look at any market that's easy to build in, that is the cycle you see. Right? You use Idaho, for example. Idaho is very easy to build. There's not a lot of government regulation and bureaucracy when it comes to building in Idaho. So Idaho has all these people moving to the state during the lockdown, right? Their population doubled? Well, when a population doubles, what does that do to real estate pricing? Well, you can't build real estate fast enough. So real estate prices go up. Real estate prices go up. That means all of a sudden when you build, you can make a return that matches the risk. And what you see in Idaho, everybody's all of a sudden a builder, right? Oh, my cousin just got into building. My stepdad just left his career to build. Everybody builds, right? And there's a moment where you're making money building, but this is what happens where it's easy to build. You build too much. And then when you build too much, you can't rent your stuff out anymore. When you sell a home, it sits on the market for months. And in that scenario, you are forced to bring prices down and bring rents down. On the apartment side, when you start bringing rents down, that's because vacancy is increasing. And in that scenario, you're going to watch real estate prices plummet, right? That's where you have a crash. Once the plummet hits, no one can build anymore. You have to wait the whole bottom out. That is how normal real estate works. The question you need to basically ask yourself is, in a market like Idaho where it's easy to build and they had supply being added, which is going to see a full-blown, in my perspective, real estate crash because of it, why did you see that experience there but you didn't see it in California? If private ownership is the problem, why didn't the price of housing in Idaho or even some of these Midwest and Sunbelt states that have already seen significant market corrections, why didn't you see the same thing happen out there as you did in California? In my perspective, it's because it's not a private ownership thing, it's a government thing, right? The state of California makes it so difficult to build. It takes so long to build. It's so expensive to build. That gets passed off to all of us. And so I don't think it's private ownership. With everything I just said, let's let everybody unpack that. What do you guys think? Am I tripping? Am I right? But I also believe that capitalism gives us as people the best experience, the best product, the best service for the cheapest price. Why didn't you go on the golf trip for Brian's 40th? Oh, you guys ready for this one? Here's a story for you. So so for anybody who doesn't know, Brian Atlas is, so Rob Dyrdek, everybody knows who Rob Dyrdek is. Brian Atlas runs Rob Dyrdek's venture firm, Dyrdek Machine. And Atlas shot me a text a month ago. And he said, dude, are you free the 27th to the 29th? And right when I saw it, I went, nope. My daughter's birthday's on the 28th. And he just responds, all good, right? Didn't even tell me what it was about. I then saw him, I golfed with him 3 weeks ago. I was like, dude, what was up with that text? And he's like, dude, Rob is taking 12 of us in his jet to Pebble for the weekend. We're going to play Spyglass, Pebble, Spanish. It's going to be the ultimate 40th birthday. I didn't want to tell you because I knew you'd be bummed. And for me, on Saturday, my daughter had a travel volleyball game. So I had to drive out to Norco with my wife. It was two hours and change to Norco. We were in a gym for 3 hours watching my daughters play volleyball while all my friends are playing Pebble. But I would not have wanted to miss my daughter's birthday. Even though we didn't really do anything that special, the thought of me being in Pebble playing golf on my daughter's birthday while it was just my wife watching her play, I didn't want to do. So I missed it. I wish it landed on a different weekend. What advice can you give somebody trying to increase the value of their home, knowing that it'll be the place they die in? Should I turn my downhill driveway into a skate spot? Slip Matthew. Okay. So I kind of went through this experience. Now, my last home was not my forever home, but my wife wanted to, do the backyard up and have like an indoor-outdoor experience and do the kitchen and all these things. And when I first looked at it, like I wanted to invest in portions of the home that would produce a return when we sold it. So I was like, yeah, let's do a kitchen. Too easy. Let's do a bathroom. I didn't want to invest a ton in the backyard just because you don't typically see a big return from landscape. And so her pushback, which was valid, was this is our home. This isn't an investment. We're not trying to flip it. This is our house. So let's make it so that we love being here. I don't know if I was wise enough to understand that back then. I learned my lesson, though. I know it now. So to pass down what I've learned, if this is going to be your home, make it so that you guys absolutely love being in your house. Enjoy it. I don't think you go balls out, right? Like, don't put millions into your home that you'll never get back. Like, I would say be smart with it, but don't treat it like an investment. Treat it like your house. Dad of the Year award. Ben, I appreciate that, my G. I really, being a good dad is hard. I have to work on that more than anything. Fire pit or you'll die poor. Soil Hefe. That's good, man. SF or multifamily, like 40 units for your first deal. Should I wait for the bottom to fall out? I'm feeling I'm going to buy at the top of the market. Colton. Okay. 4 units, I think, is good if you want a house hack. Like if you're going to buy a fourplex on an FHA loan, live in one of the units, I think a fourplex is a great strategy. If that's not your strategy, though, and you're going to invest in the question you're asking is invest in single family or multifamily, I'd go multifamily. I did go multifamily. The big reason being you're not going to retire off 3 real estate properties. Like you got to build a whole portfolio. And so a couple of the challenges you have on single family is, one, every single property is its own deal, right? You got to negotiate the price on one property, do the due diligence on one property, get the financing on one property. If there's a renovation, one property, property management, like you have to do so much work for one property, and then you have to do that over and over and over again. Where I always like the idea of instead of having to buy 5 individual homes, negotiate 5 individual deals, I could just go buy a 10-unit apartment. I like that idea. And then the other one is the occupancy issue, right? If you own one home, you're either 100% occupied or 100% vacant. With multiple units, you have other units to hedge against vacancy, right? Like you've got a 10 unit and somebody leaves, you're 90% occupied. That helps. Get to 20%, 20 units, you're even better, right? So I like multifamily. Now it costs more. So you got to be mindful of that. You might have to bring in partners. As far as buying at the bottom, a lot of people don't know this, but in multifamily, cap rates have already moved. Here's a crazy one. For multifamily in Southern California, this is what we do. Cap rates have moved more than double what they did in 2009, right? In 2008, I think cap rates were at 6%, 6.5%. In 2009, they were at 7%. They moved half a point. Cap rates moved almost a full percentage point in 2023 for us. So the multifamily market in a lot of areas has corrected significantly. So, could it go down more? Yeah, there's always a case, but most people in multifamily will tell you market's already corrected. Like the bottom already happened. We're on the rebound now. That's different for single family. Single family does not move with interest rates the way multifamily does. Multifamily runs off a business. But my point of view has always find good deals and buy them regardless of the cycle you're in. You can find a good deal at the top of the market. You can find a good deal at the bottom of the market. Just put in the work to find a good deal. Are you involved in the skate scene? Not really anymore. Not really that much anymore at all. I have a little bit of ownership in a little skate company, but I am not very involved. I'm not involved at all day to day. I don't really go to much events in the skate world. So not that much. I would like to do some more stuff. It's time. Right now, time constraint is big. Thanks for the advice. Colton, you got it. What qualifies as a good deal to you when coming to that? Okay, so for us, a lot of things that we're looking at is, let's say we get through the market research, right? Let us know if you want a burger. Here we go. Hang on. A little food delivery. Would love a burger. Okay, so let's say you get past the market study, right? Because you want to make sure that the market you're investing in has demand. That's a big one. So let's say you get past the demand. There's demand. There's major employers that you're comfortable with, growing population, high barrier to entry is something we like. You get through all of that. What you're really focused on real estate is, I guess, a couple things, depending on if you're building or you're investing in something stabilized or light value add. You're trying to figure out what your projected return is so that you can make sure that the return meets the risk, right? So on, let's say, a stabilized property, right? If you're buying a stabilized property in a great location, you're most likely going to buy it, at a 4 to 5 cap. That means that without you doing any work to it, you're going to make about 5% on your money without leverage and without rent growth or appreciation. As you start adding value to the property, you need to see the return profile go up. So if I were to go broad strokes, this is what you're going to see. Anything that's core plus stabilized, like your Grant Cardone type of product, you're typically going to see that bought at a 4 or 5 cap. So with appreciation and rent growth with leverage, maybe that ends up at a, 7% return, something like that, 7-8% return. Then as you start getting into light value add, this is a facelift, putting a new paint on the wall. Maybe that return profile gets you to 11%. Then you see value add between 12 and 15, And then you see development typically north of 17, right? You want to see high teens, early 20% IRR when you're developing. On development, there's a metric that we really focus on, which is yield on cost, right? This is the yield that you're going to get based on the cost of construction, right? Maybe a better way to say it is the cap rate that you're building it to. We typically want to see a 2 percentage point spread from cap rates on that asset class and yield on costs. So if a Class A, amenity rich, multifamily apartment is trading at a 5 cap in California, we would like to see our yield on cost somewhere around 7%. So to answer your question, you need to know how to underwrite a deal so that you can tell if you have the potential to make money. And then I would say the last thing is you want to make sure there's enough room in the deal in case things go wrong. And if things go wrong, you can still make money. So that's really what you're looking for. All right. Have you ever experienced an electric skateboard? If the motors were powerful enough, they could turn a half pipe into a full pipe. Yeah, I've ridden electric skateboards. They're insane. They're fast. I miss Alien Mikey sometimes. Passion skater. There's times where I miss parts of my life as well, right? Times on Alien I loved. Times on Seek I loved. I loved the time I got to spend with Mike Mo and Cole and Nyjah. I enjoyed the time on DC. And then I loved the time with City Stars and Paul and Spanky and all my friends growing up. There were some really cool times in my life. That is life, though. There should be, in theory, multiple iterations of ourselves throughout our life, right? I know, at least for me growing up, I don't know if it's still the case. Will you guys let me know if this is still a thing? When I was young, everybody would talk about not changing. Don't change, right? He changed. And that was a negative connotation. Don't change. Do people still say that? Let's start with that. Do people still say don't change? He changed. I want to see what you guys think. Is that still a thing? Skylar, P.S. Also, so stoked to see you still having fun. Thank you. I appreciate that. Have you shared any of your video parts with your daughters? I have. They can't believe it's me. It's so funny. They really trip that I was able to do the stuff I was able to do. Where do I ask questions here? Jesse, just hit it in the caption and I'll rip it. Man, I remember watching you skate when I was a freshman. I know, crazy, right? What would Jason Dill do? Jason Dill would probably choose to do the opposite things that I do. Okay, I'm not getting anybody to say that you shouldn't change. Maybe that's that doesn't exist anymore. That was something that was super negative when I was young. I think you should change 100%. I think we should all grow. I think we should become kind of better people, be able to manage more, have more responsibility. And so that's been my life. My life has changed. There's a point where I was just a skater. Loved that. It was super fun. Then there was a point where I was married as a skater. That was super fun for my wife and I. We got to travel all the time together, brought her on trips. Then I became a dad as a skater. That was a very difficult time being a father. I was just gone a lot from skating. Then I started my first business and became a business owner and skater and dad and husband. Hardest part of my marriage by far. And then I retired from skateboarding. So then I became a retired athlete. That was difficult. And then I ended up selling a business, which was amazing. Then I had 2 more kids. Then I started a private equity firm. Then I ran for city council. I'm thankful for the things I've done because they've been new and exciting because I've had to learn something new and I've gotten smarter from it. And so I look back on my life and enjoy, or what would be the best way to say it? Those times in my life will always be special because they were a blast and I enjoyed the moment for what it was. But, I would not give up what I have now to go back to that. No way. It's just, it's different now. What I want is different, And so, yep, for whatever it's worth. But for whoever said that about Jason Dill, yeah. Jason Dill and I we have two different ways of thinking that get us to typically two different decisions. How is the North Park project coming along? Really well, actually. We're looking at getting our COO in March. So we should have our certificate of occupancy in March. You shouldn't change, or should change or grow. Still a skater here, helping the whole community here. Yeah, I think I think changing is healthy. I think if you're not changing, you're dying, right? Stagnant. I think that's a disservice to your potential. Do you think skateboarding going to be even better now, or is it going to be worse in the next 10 years? Depends what we're using to decide what's better about it. If we're using size, like, do I think the skateboard industry is going to be larger in 10 years? I do not. I think we saw the peak of the skateboard industry from a size standpoint. That's different than maybe using the metric of like skateboard industry being special. Sometimes when things are smaller, they're actually more special. It's like such a core audience that, in a lot of ways, like I liked skateboarding the best in the 90s. Skating was tiny in the 90s. I think it's whatever you're using to gauge it. What are some promising cities, counties in San Diego you are high on for multifamily real estate investing? North Park is really one we're focusing on right now in San Diego. San Diego as a whole is a great market, though. I just saw a study, or maybe it was from one of the large kind of institutional investors. No, maybe it was a study that put San Diego as like the number 3 best cities to be investing in real estate right now. Change is not negative. Just never get comfortable with comfortability. That's exactly right, Adrian. 100%. When you were in your skate career turning pro, what was your own personal opinion about what you have become as the person you are now? Krager, good question. When I was young, when I was 18, 19, there's parts of right now that I wouldn't have liked what I'm doing. Like the idea of like being in local politics, me as a kid, that wouldn't have been cool. Me as far as owning a business, like this is the thing about me. Like Jamie Thomas was one of my favorite skaters. Yeah, I loved how he skated, but there was a factor that went beyond that. And that secondary factor is why Jamie was one of my favorite skaters. It was because when I was young and I was watching, oh man, was it Thrill of It All? It was either Welcome to Hell or Thrill of It All. It was Thrill of It All. There was a clip of Adrian Lopez doing a backtail shove it on a double kinked rail. And in the credits, basically I saw Jamie Thomas filming Adrian. And when I saw that, I thought it was the coolest thing because I had never thought that skaters did other things like film. And when I saw that, I bought a video camera and I started filming all my friends. I wanted to be just like Jamie, like a skater and a filmer. And then when I found out that Jamie owned Zero and Fallen and had built all these companies that he was basically representing, I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I thought that was the holy grail of skateboarding, that like skaters own businesses. And then I started really resonating with skaters that fit that mold, right? Like Adrian Lopez. I was like, Andrew Reynolds. I was like, dude, Andrew Reynolds owns Baker. Like this is the sickest thing. And then I started, Tony Hawk, of course. I heard Colin McKay owned a distribution and went, dude, that is the sickest thing ever. Rob Dyrdek became a big mentor of mine. So I was always drawn towards skaters that were business owners. So I think, as a kid looking at me owning business right now, I would have thought that was cool. Now, if you would have asked me at 20 years old if I would have started a real estate firm that would have over 600 investors and be managing $315 million of real estate, I would have told you no way. I would not have thought I would be ever in a position of being able to do that. A big reason would be when I was a kid and became a pro skateboarder, I didn't go to college. And when I was young, I thought that if you didn't go to school, you couldn't really ever make money. No one would ever give you a job. And when if you would have asked me about managing investments or raising money from investors, I probably at 18 would have said, I don't even know what that means, and I probably can't do that because I didn't go to college. What changed everything is when we started St. Archer. And when we started St. Archer, like me, Josh, and Paul didn't have enough money to start it ourselves. So we had to go raise money from investors. That experience was probably the biggest change in my outlook of anything I'd ever done up to that point. Because I no longer looked at a lack of money being the thing that stopped me from creating. It was like, oh, wait a minute. If I can create a business or I can find opportunity, I can find money to launch it. And then all of a sudden, opportunity seemed like it was much greater. But the politician thing, I would have had a hard time with that when I was young, for sure. Even my friend Justin Case, like growing up, I had this friend Justin, and I posted a video of me at a city council meeting in like a suit and tie and like talking about policy making. And he even commented, he's like, bro, who are you? You know, like I never would have thought this would be you when we were kids. And I wouldn't have thought that either. Hotel flipping question-ish. What's the market like for you when you're looking for artwork to furnish buildings? Trying to find indirect avenues of art money in real estate. AJSX. I just did an interview with Rich Sommers. Rich Sommers is a hotel investor. He basically renovates boutique hotels. His podcast is going to come out probably 2 weeks. If you're not following the podcast, just comment the word podcast and I'll send you the link so you can follow it on Apple, Spotify. It's on my YouTube channel if anyone wants to join there. Just comment the word podcast and I'll send it over to you. He talks about a lot of ways of adding value for hotels. Design is huge. For my world with multifamily, it doesn't really apply. We are not in charge of furnishing the units. That's the tenant's job. That applies more on Airbnbs and hotels. Does it make a big difference? 100%. With hotels, it's all about experience. So if you can create something that's a better experience and you can make it cool, yeah, art and design is a huge factor when doing that. Craig, you're welcome, my man. Do you think next set upcoming skaters, I have skaters that be better than Nyjah or Sean Malto in the next couple of years? They're already better than Sean and Nyjah. Like, Yuto is unbelievable. Like, we're going to watch skaters. I mean, they're already doing things that are unreal, but yeah, everything's changed. Everything has changed, that's for sure. Well, my man, you got it. Yep, if anybody wants to follow the podcast, just comment podcast. I'll get you over a link. The next one is going to be all about renovating boutique hotels. It was a really good interview. Who was the Glenn Plake of skating? I don't know who Glenn Plake is. Somebody help me out with who that is. Best advice for 20-year-olds with minimum wage job. Giant skate gap. Yeah, if you're young and you're in a minimum wage job, this is what I would be doing. The job that you're in right now is temporary, right? So you have to look at it as temporary. You are only doing this thing for the moment. All of your energy should be spent on what you're going to do next, right? And so you kind of need to try to figure out what it is you want to do, and then you need to basically learn how to go do it. How you learn it, I think, is irrelevant. There's a lot of people that think I'm wrong in that statement, but I don't care if you have a degree or a certificate that tells you that you were taught something. I only care about if you know how to do the thing. There are more and more employers like me, even now in the large businesses that would prefer you not have a degree. So focus on what you want to do, learn a skill set, invest in yourself, and then go monetize it over and over and over, right? If you're getting a job somewhere, like, let's say you're making minimum wage, you want to move into a job where you're earning more, right? View that job as an opportunity for you to learn, right? What can I learn from this job that's going to put me in a position to make more at the next job? That is your outlook. The second that you have nothing else to learn, time to look for the new job. What is the next step for me to learn? Anytime you get comfy, you need to have a mechanism that checks you, right? If you're comfy, I would recommend not being in that place. That's kind of a moment for you that you need to switch things up and you need to go learn something. You need to put yourself in an uncomfortable scenario because that's where you grow. That's where we have the opportunity to make more money. Dartego, why are you always texting me only on Mondays, bro? Okay, so I have a text that I send out every Monday morning, 9 o'clock. And there's probably 4,000 people or so in that text group. And so I send out a text that's meant to be motivational on Mondays, and then I respond to as many people as I can. But there's just so many people that it's easy to miss it. So that's why, though. I text on Mondays. It's just too many people to be in a constant flow. Maybe I need to create something else, though. Maybe I need to do like a Discord, or maybe I need to do a community group where I'm popping in more often. What is the skill that you see a demand for that someone could learn to make good money while not being their own boss? Seabass, selling. Selling is huge. Learning how to communicate, to be articulate, is going to be so powerful. Learning how to sell is going to be huge for you because if you are good with sales, there's no ceiling. It's eat what you kill. And because most people want a constant flow of money or kind of a stabilized income, people that get into sales have the opportunity to make so much. Like if you're looking at my investors, out of the 600 something investors, those that are W-2 employees, the majority of my investors are in sales. And the money that they make, it ranges from $400,000 to I have friends clearing over $1 million invest with us because of sales. So I would say that's huge. They say that the two industries that they see the highest income earners in sales is solar and life insurance, for what it's worth. If you inherited $220K, what would you do with it? Refined industrial. The hard part is what I would do might not fit what you should do. Like for me, $220K, I wouldn't need the money for like my lifestyle. So I would put that straight into the investments and I already have my portfolio like allocation set. So, 220K, if it were me, I would probably do this. 280K. Oh, sorry, wait. Did you tell me 280, 220? 180K, 170K going into real estate. For me, it'd probably be just multifamily. 170K into multifamily. I would probably take the next 30 and maybe that would be two $15,000 investments into like a very early startup round. Maybe that's 15 is a little bit low. Maybe it'd have to be one at 30. And then the rest I'd probably sit on cash or maybe put some of it into crypto. That's what I would do. But that might not be where you're at in your life. So I think for you, the questions that you need to ask yourself are, what are your short-term goals? For most people, short-term goals are buying a house. So, a short-term goal should be something that you need money for in the next 5 years. And then depending on that amount is going to decide what decision you're going to do, right? If you want to buy a house and you need a down payment of $200,000 and you want to do it in the next 5 years, that money is going into a savings account. Put it in a high yield savings account and don't invest it because you're going to use that to buy a house. If you own a house and you want some long-term like retirement type of investments, well, that's when you're going to start looking at, I would say, the conventionals, stocks. Maybe if you want some bond exposure, you start looking at alts, real estate, maybe some private equity, private credit. But it's hard to say what you should do without knowing a lot about you. That's the hardest part about recommending what to do with money. Do you have any experience in establishing a competitive brand like Nike versus Adidas? Well, the last business I started was a craft brewery. The craft beer industry was pretty saturated. So yeah, I probably have a lot of experience in creating a brand in a hyper competitive market. And then even for what I do now, like it's different because I don't sell a product the way we sold beer, but it's still super competitive. And I'm competing with a lot of companies and a lot of large companies now. So yeah, I do. All right. What is a skill that you see a demand? Oh, sorry, I already answered that question. That's my bad. Whatever you do, just be glad you aren't watching this MNF game. All right. All right, brother. That's where I'm at. No mechanism for checking myself. It's hard. I totally hear you. Colin, what's going on, brother? I hope you're well. I gave you $100. If I gave you $100 right now, Mikey, could you still give me a nollie front feeble on the flat bar? Man, it would take a second. The answer is yes, but it would take a second. Would you be interested in being my mentor? Kelly, you know what? I'm getting that question actually pretty often now. It's really making me think about creating some type of like investing group or like coaching group, but I don't have it yet. All right, sir, if I may ask, can you please any of questions? Right, Scheichlot. I didn't see the question. Do you mind repeating it? All right. What kind of wisdom can you drop with competition other than creating value? Oh, really good question. Creating value in a competitive market actually isn't enough anymore. You really have to create separation. So basically, we're in a market that's so competitive that basically everyone's good, right? So you either have to create a product that others don't have, and that's how you separate yourself, or you have to create a brand and an experience in a community that can't be replicated. That's more what I've always done. You know, with beer, we tried to create a beer that could win awards, and then that was not our separation. Our separation wasn't we created an award-winning, IPA. Our separation was the brand, right? What did people feel when they bought our product? And, for us, like our brand, the brewery was all about the California lifestyle through our lens, not the normal lens. Our lens was surf, skate, snow, art, music, culture. That was our world. That's how we viewed California. And so we brought on investors that were in that center of influence. And then all of our marketing was about them. It wasn't about beer. It was about P-Rod. It was about Taylor Knox. It was about Slash. And even at our events, like when we would have events at the brewery, we'd have those skaters pouring beer for our consumer, right? That was the type of stuff that couldn't be replicated. Like that was our brand. No one was doing it like that. That's how we created separation. For me now, it's probably even more relevant because I have an investment that like other people have. Other people are building apartments. There's huge funds building apartments. Like investment companies are everywhere. And so I made sure that my investment, I thought, was better than, or at worst, as good as everyone else, right? If I was competitive, okay, then what's the next thing I could do? And when I looked at apartments, like apartment firms or investment firms, they were so boring. Like everything felt stale. It felt corporate. It felt like everybody was talking down to you. It didn't feel cool. There was nothing like rad about it. The design sucked. And so I wanted to create a company that looked different than everyone else. I wanted it to look more like a skate brand than an investment firm, all the way to what you see when you walk in my office. Like if you walk in my office, it does not feel like a real estate firm. It feels like a tech firm. That's by design. If you go on our social media, it does not look like an investment firm. All of our content is we try to be educational. We have a community that we're constantly, catching up with, trying to add value through that medium. So that's how I've tried to create separation. It's very difficult to create separation on product alone, though. All right, gang, I have to bounce. I've got to go run home, make dinner for the kids because my wife is at a French class because I'm taking her to Paris next month. Love you guys. Thanks for hanging with me. I will see you guys Thursday is my next day to go live. All right, later, everybody.